Hey guys. Well, I'm back. It's been a hell of a week, but now I'm finally back to reviewing on my own terms. The box is where it's supposed to be, and oh, by the way, I got a score to settle with you. Anyway, 2 years ago, I reviewed Youngblood number 0, in which some dumbass named Battlestone led a bunch of Marines and muscle-headed morons into the Middle East, where Battlestone proceeded to kill someone under his command, and he was subsequently imprisoned for it. Well, if that's not the setup for one of the greatest comic book series of all time, I don't know what is. First issues are meant to introduce the main character to the reader, and you can tell that we're all in for a really good introduction to Battlestone, since this cover is littered with 33 other characters. How are we supposed to connect with Battlestone when we have all these other characters competing for panel time? Well, actually, we don't have that problem to deal with, since only 7 of them actually make an appearance in this comic. So, what are they even doing on this cover? Maybe they all play some part in the story that occurred in the 2 years between the publication of Youngblood number 0 and this comic, but again, this is supposed to be the introductory issue. Getting into comics can be a pretty daunting task for those who have no idea where to start, and any kind of implied backstory that isn't written in the comic itself is only going to put off potential new readers. And one more thing about this cover. What's up with this guy? I am vengeance. I am the night. I am minty fresh! We open on kind of a weirdly drawn Independence Hall, and we then immediately jump into the sewers. Because when your story is set in an iconic city like Philadelphia, the first place you want to see is the sewers. Anyway, we see Battlestone, without his iconic no-nonsense silver, blue, and pink jumpsuit, leading Chapel, his future murder victim, Al Simmons, aka Spawn, and some other Marines through the sewers to weed out an organization calling themselves Cybernet. You gotta love it when our heroes can't tell the difference between a group of terrorists and some fledgling e-business. And it's worth pointing out again that this comic was published 2 years after Youngblood number 0, and there's no indication of whether this is supposed to be a prequel, or if this is the next part of whatever story has been going on up until now. Thanks for not letting us know what's actually going on, comic. Speaking of not letting us know what's going on, why are these Cybernet guys prowling the sewers? With a name like Cybernet, you'd think they'd be committing their misdeeds in front of a computer or something. Wynn wanted us in Philadelphia to measure just how deeply Cybernet had sunk their teeth into this town. Judging by the welcoming party Geiger arranged for us, I'd say this place is being chewed up on a daily basis. Who's up for pulling a few teeth? Great. It would appear that Battlestone here is actually Molar, Eternia Dentist. Despite coming out of this skirmish on top, most of Battlestone's crew are in bad shape. And instead of seeing to their wounds or calling for backup, Battlestone and Chapel run off to deal with God knows how many other Cybernet recruits, leaving their wounded behind to fend for themselves. He is just the kind of person you want leading a platoon of superheroes into the Gulf War. They make their way out of the sewers and into a subway tunnel, and one of Battlestone's underlings, named Dutch, reminds him that they're trying to be discreet about their mission. And it turns out that these characters are so generic and interchangeable that the artist completely forgot who's supposed to be talking here. In this panel, we see Dutch telling Battlestone that they need to find another route that won't endanger any civilians, and in the next panel, we see him replying to himself with some dialogue that's clearly written to be coming from Battlestone. And no, this isn't another case of the camera breaking the 180-degree rule like we see here in Youngblood number 0. This character talking has the same blue eyes and thin black eyebrows that Dutch has. This is Dutch replying to himself.
Recognize my obvious artistic talent.
They turn back the way they came, but are then set upon by some robots painted gold and pink. Because when you're spending millions of dollars on bipedal death machines, what else can you color them but pink, the most deadly of all colors?
Too much pink energy is dangerous.
By the way, why is Cybernet using humans as soldiers when they have futuristic robots at their disposal? Just seems like a waste of employees, if you ask me. Of course, it doesn't matter that the robots outnumber these guys and are more agile and probably more heavily armed, since they managed to take most of them down in one single panel. One of the robots escapes, and Chapel and Dutch start chasing after it. Battlestone objects and starts chasing his comrades. You can tell he's chasing both of them since he's actually farther ahead than Dutch. They follow the robot into one of the subway tunnels, and they narrowly escape getting hit by a train by ducking into some passage that wasn't there a second ago. Then they're in a blank, featureless void, and then they're facing a brick wall, which I guess just appeared out of nowhere. Apparently the subway was designed by M.C. Escher. Instead of doing the logical thing and backpedaling a few dozen yards so they can safely get back into the sewer, Chapel uses one of his guns to blow a hole into the wall, which leads them to... big open sky? Man, I was right. The subway was designed by MC Escher. Where's Chapel even going here? Even if his gun was powerful enough to take out giant chunks of concrete like that, shouldn't there be nothing but dirt on the other side of that wall? And while I'm sure this is supposed to look like his eyes are flashing because he's extreme, it looks to me like one of his bullets ricocheted and shot him in the eye.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Before Battlestone can follow Chapel out of the tunnel, Dutch pulls a gun on him because he's actually working for Cybernet. And one point-blank bullet to the face later, Battlestone awakens in a water tank, tangled up in a mess of wires and tubes that I guess are supposed to be some kind of life support system. And of course, it had to be drawn in a 2-page spread, forcing me to hold a magazine like this as I look at an image of a naked man. Even this guy is horrified by having to look at this. We get some exposition from the doctors who are caring for Battlestone about how not only are they reviving him from death, but that they're also implanting his brain with thoughts and feelings of their own design. I would like to remind you that Battlestone is vocally against the idea of scientists artificially creating and controlling life. You know, if you guys need to vent your frustrations, you can just write a blog. Do you really think you need to write your complaints about the world into somebody else's brain? Speaking of Battlestone's brain, these guys did a really good job reconstructing his head. Bullet wounds tend to leave a little bit more damage than that. Also, I guess it was these doctors who outfitted him with that little skull in his forehead. Because science. The tiny-headed businessman from the cover then shows up to prepare Battlestone for the next step, and we then meet blonde-haired Burt Reynolds, who tells Battlestone, "You're still too darn serious. You need to loosen up, to let go of all them angry thoughts you got swimming around that hard head of yours." Too serious? Let go of angry thoughts? You do know that this is an early 90s Image comic, right? Asking that is like asking a skeleton not to be dead. And since Battlestone can't let go of his anger, and no, we never learned what he's angry about, that somehow means that he can't even leap headfirst into Cowboy Curtis here without landing flat on his ass. Because your would-be victim goes ethereal if you're too angry? I don't know. We then jump to Battlestone in another lab, or it may be the same lab but with different lighting for some reason, and we have no idea if that last scene happened in real time or if it was just a flashback or something. Waste of time. Never worked before. Just asking for trouble. As bad as this comic may be, it apologizing does make it a little easier to get through. The doctors, for no apparent reason, start to talk about Battlestone's past, which I guess isn't very well known. To make the story even more convoluted than soldier gets experimental treatment and gets superpowers, it would appear that Battlestone was originally part of a team of superheroes from World War II, calling themselves the Allies. Yeah, never mind the group of countries who all banded together to stop the Axis powers, you go ahead and give yourselves the same name. You're the real Allies, aren't you? Oh yeah, and Die Hard is a part of this little super team as well. I didn't know that cyborg technology went as far back as the 1940s. They start to attack the headquarters of a Nazi supervillain called the Baron, and this guy named Super Patriot gets shot. Die Hard blames Battlestone for this, since he was supposed to provide Super Patriot with some kind of cover, despite the fact that the only order he was given was to take down the Baron hard and fast. Roman, another member of their team, comes to Battlestone's defense and... Wait, is he suddenly coming to Battlestone's defense? Or was it he that Die Hard was chewing out for not covering Super Patriot? I honestly don't know who's at fault here. Did the writer forget who Die Hard was supposed to be talking to? Did the artist get the characters mixed up? Or are the doctors telling the story just very easily confused? Hey, wait a minute. If both Battlestone and Die Hard have been doing military operations since the 1940s, and keeping the safety of his fellow soldiers in mind was always a problem, how did Battlestone get to lead this Youngblood team in Youngblood number 0? Shouldn't Die Hard be leading them since he always has been the leader? Anyway, Die Hard tells Battlestone that he can't play with them anymore. Yeah, one member of their team gets wounded, and that's enough reason to exclude a superhuman from your group. And we jump back to the present, where Battlestone is working as a furniture tester for Lazy Boy. And the doctors decided to outfit him with a pair of tidy whities. Is there any reason why they didn't just do that before? It sure would have been a lot easier for the artist to draw this than a bunch of wires and tubes stretched across his junk. The doctors are continuing to implant Battlestone's brain with their own pre-designed thoughts and feelings, and they note how he seems to be giving into it. Here's a question. If not much is known about Battlestone's past, and he's trying to forget his past, then what's the point of fleshing out his backstory like this? I mean, he's trying to forget, the doctors working on him are trying to supplement his memories with something that they've made themselves, so if nobody cares, then why should we? But in spite of the obvious reality that no one cares about his past, We jump to another flashback where we see Battlestone as a young boy beating up his little brother, Cabot. His mom is horrified by this behavior, but his dad just smiles and says, "I'm raising them as men, strong men, worthy of their birthright. It's clear that when the time comes for his ascension to manhood, my John will be more than ready. He'll be more than ready to beat people up for no adequately explained reason, and then complain about how it's everyone else's fault." And the comic ends with another vertical 2-page spread, because some guy posing like this really demands this kind of formatting, as the doctors dress up Battlestone in his iconic costume, and declaring that the experiment was a complete success. If by complete success you mean total failure, then you're absolutely right, because this comic is just awful. Seriously, why did this guy get his own comic series? We know nothing about the guy except that he's a terrible leader, and he's a jerk who just likes hurting people. And that'd be all well and good, except that we already have Youngblood number 0 to tell us that. The opening subplot with Cybernet was pointless. There's no explanation of why a nutjob like this was selected to be part of this super soldier experiment. And again, how does a guy who doesn't have superpowers survive getting shot in the head? The art is your typical early 90s image fare with questionable body proportions, weird twisted faces, and locations that vary wildly from one panel to the next. This whole comic is just a pointless, confusing mess. And if it's a pointless and confusing mess, you know what that means. Ah, that's better. See you next time.
Now, seen for the first time anywhere are the original character sketches for Youngblood. Look to Hero for regular updates on this scorching new program.
Subscribe, like, follow, comment, share, watch more.